You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Another thing that I saw last week, looked like this article came out about 11 days ago now, in the American Prospect. It's kind of along the line. It's kind of along similar lines to Trump's NLRB. Being super anti-worker. We can see the same thing with Trump's OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Hazard Administration,
And something to consider when we're talking about Trump's NLRB, Trump's OSHA. Here's the thing. We're not attacking these things because they are specifically Trump-esque.
He's just the one that appointed it.
Yeah,
he's the one that created, or he's the one that appointed all the people that are sitting here. So
the conservatives say, F your feelings, the facts is what matters, and we're just pointing out the facts.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just facts, whether you want to admit it or not. They're easy to find if you go out there and look.
Yeah. So this is an article in the American Prospect called How OSHA Went AWOL During the Pandemic. And one of the facts that it points out is that OSHA reports it has received over 10,000 complaints from workers about lack of protections against the coronavirus. That is just about lack of protections against the coronavirus. Nothing else. These more than 10,000 complaints only about the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Okay? Until
and this has only been in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
We're just talking about 6 months.
Until early September, the agency, out of these 10,000 complaints, has issued citations to 2 employers.
Yeah.
2 employers. 10,000 complaints and 2 employers. Okay? That is insane. Do you know how many of these OSHA has even inspected? 199 inspections in response to these complaints. 10,000 complaints.
Over.
199 inspections, 2 citations. And OSHA has already closed more than 8,500 of these cases without taking any action. No follow-up, no investigation. They're just saying, we don't have the capacity to do this, and so we're not going to, and so you are on your own.
Yeah. Here's a quick story. It's something that, you may be thinking, that's not that big of a deal. Everybody's calling and complaining about this or about that, what have you. I was organizing some nurses in a city in Alabama. You know about this drive. Mm-hmm. Throughout the course of talking to these nurses, come to find out that the administration for this specific hospital was locking up PPE and issuing it at the beginning of each shift because they thought that some of the PPE was being stolen, taken home for personal use, what have you. I get it, whatever. But they were locking this PPE up, issuing it at the beginning of the shift. This is during the pandemic. One of the nurse's patients, actually, the heart stops of this patient. She hasn't got, it's the beginning of her shift. She hasn't got issued her PPE yet. She runs in to start performing CPR on the patient. As she's compressing the chest, she's getting the spewing from the lungs back up into her face because she don't have any PPE. Man. A few weeks later, she gets the coronavirus. A few weeks after that, she passes away from the coronavirus. All because the administration was locking up PPE. So when you think, well, these ain't that big of a deal, I'm telling you, these frontline workers are she sacrificed her life for the life of someone that she didn't know.
Right.
And
stuff like that isn't going
selflessly.
Stuff like that would be much less likely to happen if you have a union in your workplace because these workers did not have a union. They did not have to be consulted about locking up PPE. They did not have to be consulted about changes made to their working conditions. The employer did it unilaterally, and they could say, because this is an at-will employment state, the employer made the changes, and they can just say, you don't like it, you can go F yourself.
Go leave.
You can leave.
I can tell you, our negotiating team and our safety committee is weekly negotiating with the companies, and these are highly dynamic as the weeks go on and things change. We've gotten paid hotel rooms for employees where a family member may have tested positive and they want to continue to work. Okay, the company's paying for hotel rooms, so you don't have to be, and it provides safety for everybody else out there on the floor. That's stuff that's not going to happen in a non-union environment.
And here's what, for folks that think unions are unnecessary, that unions inspire laziness, that unions destroy industries, why shouldn't employers, tell me, why shouldn't employers have to bargain with their employees over things that are life-threatening? Why shouldn't employers have to bargain in good faith with the people that work for them, the people that make the money, the people that do the work, the people that produce the value for the company? Why shouldn't they have to be consulted for changes in the workplace that are going to affect not only their livelihoods, but their lives?
And their families' lives.
And their families' lives. And their friends' lives.
Why
and
would
their
I?
the patients' and the customers' lives. Why shouldn't workers get a say?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't they?
Yeah.
They should. They should is the answer. They and back to this, back to the OSHA thing. With the where workers don't have unions, where workers don't have the power to fight for themselves on these health and safety issues, sometimes we rely on the government to step in, or we hope that the government will step in and protect workers where they don't have the power to protect themselves. Okay, and so that's why this OSHA thing is important, because most of America's workers do not have unions like David and I do. They do not have the worker power on the shop floor to be able to fight for themselves, and so they rely on other people to fight for them. And so these things are important. And so the question may come up, wow, there were 10,000 complaints and only 199 of them were investigated and only two citations were issued? That's crazy. Why did that happen? The reason is because under the Trump administration, the OSHA has less than 900 inspectors for the entirety of the United States. That is insane. That is loony. That is crazy. You should have the number of OSHA inspectors fell to just 862 for the entire United States by the end of last year. Okay? Under Trump, the number of inspectors has been below 900 each year that he's been in office, a threshold that has never before been reached. There are less people inspecting for OSHA now than ever in the history of OSHA, and these people are responsible for policing more than 8 million workplaces. 8 million workplaces are falling to 862 inspectors for OSHA. That's why all of these complaints are just falling through the cracks. That's why workers are not being protected, is because the Trump administration has allowed these important institutions to just wither on the vine. And I've said this before, this was the Bannon plan. He said explicitly at the beginning of the Trump administration that his goal was the decimation of the administrative state, and this is the administrative state. This OSHA, the protecting workers' safety and health on the job, that is part of the state that the Trump administration has been out to destroy from the get-go. And that is why we constantly say you should not rely on the government to protect your rights. Right. It is the same concept of the reason that you have Second Amendment rights is to protect your rights. Mm-hmm. Under the freedom of association, joining a union will help you protect the rights that we know the government is not going to protect. Right.
I mean, that's the entire. For every conservative out there that says unions are bad, they are doing exactly what the free market sets up for them to do, and that is they rely on their own selves and their association with their other workers to protect the rights of each individual worker and not rely on the government. It is as free market principle as it gets.
And that's and you know, you've got libertarian and conservative members that say that, like that say I don't want to have to rely on the government for my safety and my health and my pay. I want to be able to do it myself. And that's unions are the way that you can do that without, and it's way more efficient than relying on the government because look, if the people don't have a union, I am for the government stepping in and having safety and health requirements and wage requirements and stuff like that where workers don't have unions, because I think it's better than nothing. Okay, but barely, and whenever you get anti-worker administrations in, like we have currently, you can't rely on even these meager institutions that were built up before, because they are allowed to wither on the vine. So the most effective way to protect your rights, to protect your life on the job, is to organize, is to form a union in your workplace and fight with your brothers and sisters for better wages, working conditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Negotiate. I mean, it's the free market principles at work. You're negotiating your pay. You're negotiating your working conditions. You're negotiating your health care.
Right.
You know, where else can you get that?
Right. That's exactly right, folks. If you want to give us a call, we've got one more segment. The phone number is 1-866-494-9866. Again, that number is 1-866-494-WVNN. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.